This is week 3 of Patrick Lecture 33, Right and Wrong Faith, Occupation with Self. In this week, I wanted to emphasize a section of the lecture that I found that I titled after the lecture it reminded me of. So it reminded me of Patrick Lecture 74, Uncertain Confusions and Hazy Motivations as an Obstacle to Faith. So that comes later, Patrick Lecture 74. Haven't covered it with a study guide, but that's why I titled this section that way. And the idea is that confusions and haziness in your thinking process are how we actually create or allow or encourage obstacles to faith. So faith can't be proven. It isn't precisely a knowing. It's not exactly a belief. So to have faith, you have to be somewhat clear. If you're hazy and upset and confused, you're not going to be able to hold faith. So these are going to interfere with faith. So the guide, as I was reading along, I spied with my little eye, a series of challenges by the guide that I translate into exercises. Now, a lot of times I read the paragraph and I feel an exercise in it, and I just simply state a one-line summary, or I rephrase it differently into an exercise. This time I took the actual text and put it in because it was close enough and still, please pardon my humor, a little hazy. And it's important to notice the difference between the 3 steps that the guide is describing, even though it's a little fuzzy. So if we look at uncertain confusions and hazy motivations as being an impediment to faith, the fact that something is not clear or a little confusing is not a reason for you not to clarify it. It may take some work. Sometimes it is important to simply read through the materials and see how you feel about it. So while I sometimes clarify what a paragraph means to me, put it in as an exercise, there's a reason the guide spent the time and the words to describe it the way he's describing it. I like to honor that, and on the suggestion of one of the participants in the meetings over several years, and highlight what might be a step to take in the process. So these exercises that the guide alludes to are to purify by clarifying. So if you read a passage and you're not clear on it, to clarify the passage. If your thinking process is a little hazy, to clarify your thinking as a first step to figuring out if that's what you want to think, if that's what you believe. If you have doubts, it's not a matter of just doing it, but why you would do it. So the guide actually suggests if you have doubts about this in terms of doing this for God, do it for the love of others, because you have the capacity for a love of others. Find a way where this exercise or this purification or clarification process is an exercise in developing more love for use by others as well as yourself. Do it for love of others if you don't feel a strong calling to a love of God. And the third is to notice any sense of paralysis in your thinking. Paralysis is kind of another form of confusion. If I don't know which way to go, I just freeze because I'm confused. So you need to move out of that paralysis. The guide suggests asking for help. Not asking what the answer is, what to think, what to do, but to ask for help figuring out what is causing the paralysis so that you can voluntarily and consciously step out of it. Think of this like emergency personnel are trained to respond to emergencies. Now, if you've never responded to an emergency, I can tell you from experience, the first thing you do is freeze. Somebody's hurt, they're wounded, they're bleeding, you don't know what to do, you may not feel trained. You look around, somebody surely can help this person. I don't know what to do. And every once in a while, you're the only person around, and you just need to do the best you can. Use common sense, use logic, do what you can. It's better than nothing. So you want to notice any sense of paralysis in your inner work and get it moving again. However you have to do that, whatever help you need. Tricks and techniques work. Guide is suggesting to ask for help. So those 3 steps I put left in the guide's words because they were short and I thought they were, you could see the meaning in them. And the next section was on how intuition is a form of divine guidance. Now, I have a favorite passage from Patrick 55 on expansion, contraction, stasis that differentiates intuition from instinct. Instinct meaning the impulse towards survival. Now, I personally respect instinct. If you don't have good instincts, you may die. So instincts are very important and very powerful. They need to be obeyed. What people do is they elevate the instincts from sheer survival to preferential survival. So they rely on animal instincts in social situations, in modest situations that don't require that level of oomph, because it's not life or death. We put that in there because if we put ourselves in a life or death situation, it gets us to act. Instinct is different. Instinct comes from the inner self, the real self, the divine kernel. Instinct never rushes, never pushes, never dictates. Instinct is a knowing. In just a moment, for some small element of perhaps a chain of events, you have a knowing. Now, you may not know how to put that knowing together with the other facts and situations that are going on, but at least you have a knowing. So intuition is a form of divine guidance, divine from yourself, your own divine guidance. And it needs to be cultivated. Think of instinct like the most fragile flower that took a long time to grow and only has a certain lifespan, and you just don't want to mistreat it. I was going to say instinct. Intuition is quite delicate. It can be easily mistaken for something else. You have to calm your inner mind and listen and hear the distinction between intuition, that inner knowing. Now, different people have different ways of describing knowing. Some describe it as hitting bedrock. There's something about, I'm mushy, I'm floating, I don't know what's going on. Oh, okay. Now I've contacted something immovable. If that's intuition, then that hard surface is a knowing. If it's instinct, that hard surface may be an urge to react. So, not sure if that helps, but I rather liked the section from Patrick Lecture 55. Now, the very, very last section that I included with this lecture, and I'm going to do my humorous version. If all else fails, consider that avoiding the issue, staying paralyzed or confused or hazy, increases your karmic debt. Now, I like to use that little buggy whip to remind me that there are consequences. You can't goof off forever and expect the job to get done. I have a job, I have a spiritual task, I have learning to do, I have interactions to do, I have growth and development to do, and I'm certainly allowed to take time off. But if I take too much time off, I may not see the consequences immediately, but they're going to be there because karma is like the divine accounting system. The beads just go to the side or they go this side. Somebody's just keeping track. They're not against you or for you. It's not that you're bad or good. It's just that this didn't help and this did help. This showed positive intent and this showed negative intent, or this didn't show any intent at all. So if all else fails, consider that avoidance increases karmic debt. And then the last little bit is that there's a phrase that I like that coincides with occupation with self. And it's where we can misunderstand self-interest and self-care and self-love. Self-interest is, if you say I'm self-interested, that doesn't sound positive. And the reason is usually we mean that from an ego perspective. My self-interest is to look good, feel good, be rewarded, get validation. That's my self-interest. It really feeds my ego. It may not be beneficial for my soul and my spiritual task, but it makes me feel great. There's a phrase called enlightened self-interest. And you may have other words for this. I know that there are other phrases, but I'm just going to stick with this for the moment. Enlightened self-interest is, yes, I do take care of myself by taking care of others. My enlightened self-interest says, don't take it all for yourself, share with the others, because then we will all be healthier or more relaxed or happier. And then better things will result for all of us, and you will be able to participate in that. It is self-interest, but it is a more enlightened form of self-interest than immediate gratification. So one of the ways you could look at instinct and intuition, for instance, is that instinct is a now event. Instinct is going to save my life now. Intuition may be a knowing that saves my soul, my spiritual task, my inner being for the next decade. So this is all about right and wrong kinds of faith, meaning faith is a wonderful thing. It can go one way or the other. Occupation with self, which can also go petty or enlightened. And how confusion and haziness can interfere with all of this. So thank you for listening. This is about Pathwork Lecture 33. One quick reminder, I edit the lectures and I don't telegraph in advance how much I've edited. So I always encourage you to go back to the original ones on the Pathwork Foundation website and read the entire lecture. I can't include side trips and exercises unless this thing becomes 20 pages long. And I try to make the study guides on the Word document, the actual full study guide that is uploaded on the website and available for download. I try my very best to keep every week no more than 3 pages. I figured 3 pages a week is not a big ask, even though in the newsletter it's longer because I put more spaces in and it's formatted differently. But 3 pages with lots of spaces is a reasonable ask for somebody to look at in a given week's time. When you take a 12-page lecture and you put all these spaces in and all these exercises and references to other lectures, something's got to go. So I decide what is relevant to the 4 subtopics that I choose, and I prune. So if you want more if you read the lecture or the study guide and you like it, please consider going and reading the original source material. So thanks for listening to the video. Take care. Bye-bye.